I noticed that it's that much more important for me to focus on the other elements of my management, of my energy, my mental, my emotional, my spiritual, my financial, my relational, my recreational, all those other parts of me. I need to make sure that I'm really dialed into, especially if another one is compromised.
Welcome to Give a Heck. I am your host, Dwight Heck, and for much of my life, lived my life in quiet desperation, wondering how I was going to pay the bills, take vacations, save for retirement, and one day wondering if I would get off the hamster wheel of life and have purpose. A life that most of society lives, which takes us to work, then home, then repeat, and pays us hopefully enough just to survive. The harsh truth that most live with more months than money and have no idea how to live life on purpose, not by accident. This ensures the mass majority are living not just financially broke, however, emotionally and mentally as well due to financial pressures. In each episode, I will introduce you to thoughts, ideas, and guests that can help you to learn how you too can live life on purpose, not by accident.
Good day and welcome to Give a Heck. On today's show, I welcome Theresa Rose. Theresa is a brand and business crystallizer, strategic co-creator, and certified speaking professional who works with experts in their businesses to create one-of-a-kind visual brands they can draw on a cocktail napkin. Using her crystallization process, Theresa helps thought leaders clarify, amplify, and monetize their brilliance as effectively and lucratively as possible. Theresa brings delightful enthusiasm, energy, and insight on how entrepreneurial experts can cut through the noise and distraction to create meaningful, lasting, and lucrative connections with their customers and fans. I'd like to welcome you to the show, Theresa. Thanks so much for agreeing to come on and share with us some of your life journey.
Thanks, Dwight, for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate you giving me your time as well. It works both ways, right? I appreciate it too because for those new to the show, or even my listeners that have been on for a long time for the last few years, they know that we're both giving of our time that we can never get back. So I appreciate it a lot, and I take it seriously because at the end of the day, I want to make sure this is impactful for you, impactful for the listeners, and of course me. I kind of like want to get something out of it too. So it's all good. So, Teresa, as I mentioned before we hit record, one of the things I focus on, especially for the new listeners, I focus on a person's origin story just so that we can get to connect to you on a more personal basis besides what just happened to you from high school forward. If you have anything you'd like to share, as much as you want to share, it can be as long as you want. I find the better the origin story, the better connection to the listeners. So please tell me your origin story, Teresa, and what key things from your childhood to adulthood led you to where you're at currently.
Yeah, well, thank you for the question. I love telling my origin story because I believe that who we are and how we serve and how we shine is often revealed very early on in our lives. And for me, when I look back on my life and I see what were the fundamental milestones and elements of what my life is, it has to start with my mom. And you and I spoke a little bit before we started about my weathered 1960 copy of Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich on my right behind me on my shoulder, and it's one of my most prized possessions, and it really reflects that origin story for me. My mother, it was a single mom who had a full-time job as a nurse, and she had three children. I was the youngest, am the youngest, and still the youngest. I haven't become the oldest yet. And I saw her at the most formative years of my life, which, 5 years 5 years of age, suddenly having my life change with where I lived and what was happening and all the things that were swirling and whirling around when my parents were no longer together. And I witnessed firsthand my mother being kind of the original entrepreneurial, you know, hustler. You know, she had to get things done. She had to be able to provide, and there was no one else that was going to help her do that. And I saw what she did. And part of what she did was expand her horizons. She looked at something that was bigger than what she had thought she was meant to do in the nursing field. And she became a Mary Kay consultant. When I was 5 years old, and she was a customer for years. She loved the product, but she became a consultant in when I was 5. And a year later, she became a director, and she was a director for the next 30 years until her passing in 2006. And the answer is yes, she had a pink Cadillac. So I grew up in my childhood riding shotgun in a pink Cadillac, and it was a very illuminating and motivating and powerful place to grow up. I like to tell people that I knew more women by the age of 8 than most people know in a lifetime, because I was her assistant. Went to strangers' houses all over the Midwest, and their dining room tables, and I was chief washcloth runner and product fulfillment officer and cheerleader, watching her in action. And part of that process is really multifold. Number one is I got exposure to the mechanics of successful sales, and I got exposure to the mechanics of successful leadership. I saw my mother doing these things time and time and time again, and I noticed that and I picked up on things that were relevant. For example, you don't sell. To be a great salesperson, you don't sell. You never want to sell. You want to show and tell. You want to be the expert that is simply offering your expertise and what you know, and either they like it or they don't. And if they don't like it, that's okay. It's not a personal reflection on you, and it doesn't change it, and it keeps the energy in a way that is helpful as opposed to opportunistic. So number one, I saw that she'd be disappointed when she would pack up her stuff in a Minnesota blizzard, and we'd run across town in her rusty Datsun B210, and we'd have these two big heavy pink suitcases full of product that I loved playing with, that we would go to these strangers' homes, and then she'd sell a mascara, and then we'd have to do it all over again. And that was actually one of the things that she said to me that I will never forget on her deathbed. We would have all these conversations, the best conversations we ever had in our lives. We had in the 4 months of her decline. And I asked her once in the middle of the night, she was 2 o'clock in the morning. She still wanted to talk. She just wanted to talk and talk and talk and talk and live as much life as she could in those last few months. And I asked her, what was the hardest part of your job? And she told me that story of the working all day on my feet and being exhausted and needing to feed you and having to turn up, put the dress on and put the heels on and put all the stuff in the Datsun B210 and then sell the mascara. That wasn't the hard part. The hard part was doing it again the next day. It's doing it again when times get tough. It's doing it again when you face plant. It's doing it again when you don't make any money. It's doing it again when you lose hope, when you feel lost, when you feel alone, when you feel fearful and desperate, and to still keep doing it and operating from that place in your heart of genuine connection and service. So that's part of what I learned growing up. And I also would say that living and growing up riding shotgun in a pink Cadillac also gave me exposure to the power of positive psychology. It was the exposure to being deliberate in your mindset, staying positive. I mean, I had a stuffed animal that was given to my mom because she was one of the top performers in her unit in her whole area, and as part of a Christmas present that they gave a little Ms. Bear. And it was this little stuffed animal that had a woman bear that had a little business suit on, and you could pull the cord, and the cord would talk to you. And in normal kids, regular kids would have stuffed animals that would, that wouldn't tell them, if it is to be, it is up to me. And you pull the cord, and it would say, you can go to the top, and you're perfect, just perfect. I mean, these are the kinds of messages that I got when I was in the formative state of growing up. So knowing that was my input. It really did color everything that I did after that. I was most enthusiastic in second grade. And I came home crying, going, I don't know what this means. Is this a good thing or a bad thing? And my mom snapped her long painted fingernails, tapped the kitchen table and said, Teeter, that's the best one you could possibly get. Most enthusiastic is going to take you far, Lady Jane. You are going to go long ways by that, and she was right, because there were times in my life when opportunities opened up for me, and stages were opened up for me as a professional speaker, not because I was the expert on X, Y, or Z topic, but simply because the energy that I brought, the enthusiasm that I brought, the genuine presence that I brought in every situation was so palpable that people would say, I don't know what you do, but I want a little bit of it. So whatever you speak on, we want to have. And so enthusiasm, I would say, is the core part of what I got as part of my origin story.
Wow. Yeah. That, and what a great thing to get, like you were saying, and like your mom said about you. I was reading that about your grade two, and I smiled last night when I was reading that. I thought that's awesome, because most people don't think that that would be worth bringing up, but actually it is. It is worth
Oh,
bringing
it's
up
huge.
because we have so many monumental things that happen throughout our lives from our earliest recollections that society dampens. Well, that's what do
Yeah,
you, that was when you were a child. What does that matter? Right? They don't
yeah.
really encourage us to continue to blossom right from that person in grade two all the way to where you are today. I like the fact of, man, some of the people I have on as guests, there's so many commonalities. My sister was a director for a long, long time in Mary Kay. So I seen the
Nice.
pink Cadillacs and
Yep.
all the way up to where they went to was probably would have been around, I don't know, 2008, 10 or whatever. They started going from the Cadillac car to the SUV, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, it makes me smile because my sister, she was a teacher, but it was something that was just not resonating with her anymore. Um, how angry parents are and how broken the school systems can be in our North American continent. So she got involved in Mary Kay part time and eventually became her full time thing. So it made me smile when you talked about that because Mary Kay, a lot of these networking companies, people don't realize they do a lot of personal development. They do a lot of
Oh, yeah.
encouragement and things that, even if it doesn't work for you, somebody that's listening, if you're thinking negative and you've been involved in some network marketing MLM, and you missed the point. Like, some of it isn't just about learning how to sell a product or a service. It's about, reaching your inner
Growing.
self and
Yeah.
yeah, growing, blossoming, and
Yep.
being, starting on that journey where you never stop climbing. And that's what
Yeah.
happened for me with an MLM, though, where I got started was with Amway, right?
Hmm.
I haven't been
Yep.
involved with it for a long time, more than
Yep.
20
Yep.
years, but going to these events where you'd have these speakers come up and talk, and it was always very positive, very
Yep.
enthusiastic, like,
Yep.
all the things that we need in life, instead of what we get given in life, what we choose to accept in life. People listening, you don't have to accept things that don't make you feel good. right? That'll make you
Right.
feel
Right.
glad. We won't get into the
Yeah.
details of all the different things a person can start doing to get those baby steps. We might talk about it a little bit later. I did put some stuff in my notes here, but I thought that was really cool that you brought that up. I just you get that
Yeah.
warm and fuzzy feeling. It's like, wow, may
Well,
not be my mom, but my sister, right? My oldest sister,
right.
and how it
Yeah. You
changed
know
her
what
life.
though? It's perspective too, though, because I remember growing up, I was just horrified by it. And because I was already kind of a, an oddball. I loved being smart, and I loved activating my brain. I'm very creative and very curious, intellectually curious, and so I wasn't supported by that in in life generally as a child, as a girl. And so I was nerdy and I was also theatrical. I was one of those kids, to talk about another part of my life, is I was the kind of kid that had the hairbrush where I would do a show for all my stuffed animals,
That's
right? And
awesome.
Carol Burnett and Lucille Ball were my heroes, and I wanted to be, on stage and be funny and be a performer. So all of those things, I was a bit of an oddball, and also, growing up in a pink Cadillac and having a mom who was glitzy and had false eyelashes and long painted fingernails and had to she marched to her own drum, no doubt about it. It was a source of embarrassment for me for many years, and I'm sad to think of those times, because my mom, now that I'm my own woman and that I've raised my own child, I think to myself how kind of cruel that was, that I was so disparaging of it. Like, oh, could you not drop me off in front of the school every day in the pink Cadillac? It was like being dropped off by, Gloria Gaynor singing I Will Survive. Like, I didn't need any more
Yeah.
attention, Mom. I didn't need any more attention. But when we get past that moment of our lives that feels so hard, and we can look back on it and go, wow, that really served me really, really well. And I'm grateful for it. That's the kind of attitude that I like to adopt, is how can I look at the situation even now and go, I know it might be uncomfortable, but put yourself in the perspective of, there's a gift in there. There's an opportunity in there. There's something to be grateful for. Be in that space so that you don't waste any more of your time being disappointed or wishing something were different.
Yeah, I love that. Feel grateful. I look back
Yeah.
at what I learned from my dad. My dad was a very successful entrepreneur, with a business, lots of staff, and I used to resent things like, do this, do that. And I was a young kid and I wanted to do what I wanted to do. No, you got to come and work. I give you the basics of life. You got shelter, food, love. Now you got to come work for anything else you want. And
Hmm.
and,
Yep.
it wasn't until I got older where I looked back, and I used to initially, when I was going through my personal development journey and learning things, I'd look back and I'd feel guilty about things. And I shed that though, because I
Yeah.
wasn't mentally mature enough. I
Right.
hadn't reached that level of awareness, I guess, right?
Right.
Being
Yeah.
aware
Yeah.
that how much my dad taught me and how many things I still utilize today. And it really hit home for me. My dad's still alive, but when I wrote my own book and I talked about my origin and really all the things I learned, and I was having all these aha moments like, oh my goodness, I learned that from my dad. Oh
Yeah.
my goodness, I used to give him a hard time about it.
Yeah. Oh,
He's,
completely. Right.
right.
Yeah.
So I could appreciate what you're saying, and thanks for sharing that. And you talked about your mom teaching you, because you were a girl. Well, I'm a
Hmm.
single dad. My kids are all growing up now, but I have 5 kids, 4 of them daughters. So one of the biggest blessings I had was the personal development journey, the 5 love languages, learning how to, because otherwise I don't know if I would have been able to cope or deal or educate or empathize or realize that I had the abilities of being an empath, and I've been working on that for a long time now to help my daughters, right? even then
Yeah.
when they were younger, now into adulthood, it's so important. So if you're a guy listening to this, you can you can make women, girls, right, feel equal because they are. It's
Right.
already hard enough in society. Things have gotten better in some ways since you were younger. And even my kids now, they're like my oldest daughter's 37, but it doesn't mean that there's not a long way to go yet. So
Right. I mean, it was not, for example, I was, a great student, and I had a ton of extracurriculars, as you could well imagine, in drama club and student council and key club and everything you can imagine. And I still had um, I started out as a secretary, right? Instead of just automatically getting to a level of um, serving in the business world at the level that I really earned and deserved and could absolutely play in, I kind of automatically got pigeonholed because I was female. Oh, and then there's a thumbs up that thinks that too
yeah,
on Zoom
I
as I
don't,
just did
yeah.
that. Yeah, but and I will say though that it's not all shiny. And one of the things that is a part of my origin story that I'm continuing to work on is when you are raised by a entrepreneur who is supporting themselves solely by their own efforts, what I experienced was a perpetual state of not enough. I experienced, like the beginning of the month and the end of the month for 20 years were traumatic for me because the first of the month was, oh my gosh, we're starting at zero again. And at the end of the month was, oh my gosh, I hope we're going to get the numbers. I don't know if we're going to get the numbers when it comes to the sales and unit, production and et cetera, et cetera. And while she tried to shield me from that, I also was observing it, and I was seeing her angst, I was seeing her agitation and her anxiety and her fear. And those kinds of things when you're a child, it goes in, and you take it in as a pattern, as an energy. And so as someone who runs her own business, who has for the last 20 years, I still struggle with, that automatic kind of autonomic. I don't even try it. It just shows up. This notion of, uh-oh, I got to keep going, or is it going to work, or is this month is when it's all going to fall apart, when it's not based on truth. It's not based on fact. It's just having lived a life of a commission salesperson and somebody who needed to produce every single month or not get paid. That was the experience that I had. So I'm still working through money trauma.
I don't
And
think we ever get rid of that money monster though, right? I honestly don't, because being in finance as a planner for 21 years for individuals and companies, I hear the same things over and over again. And people are afraid to enjoy the journey because of that hamster wheel thought process. Oh, it's the end of the month. We're going to make it. Oh, now we're starting over. And
yeah,
it gets stuck in us no matter how often. I think, even for myself, that those moments of quiet desperation creep in, and I have to utilize tools and different things that I've learned, and I educate others on and how to squash it. But it is real, that hamster
yeah,
wheel of starting over, right? Or
yeah,
like people, they're excited from Monday to Friday, and they're excited Friday's coming. And then they realize Saturday evening, oh, tomorrow's Sunday, I'm back at work Monday. And they're back,
right,
they have a temporary relief from that hamster wheel, but they jump right back on it because it's that go to work, go home, get paid, start over. Oh my goodness, here's my
yeah,
paycheck. Now I got to wait for the next paycheck. Or if you're a business
yep,
person, you got to worry about starting over again, especially if you're
yep,
commission based, like your
yeah,
mom was, and I am myself
yeah,
in my own industry, commission based. And well, as your business as well, right?
too, yes,
Yeah,
absolutely,
yeah, billable business, same thing.
yeah,
So I can totally relate to that. Um, I also liked what you talked about, and I hear this quite often though. Like your mom would sell that tube of lipstick or mascara or whatever, and you'd put all that effort in for
yeah,
50 cents, let's say, for an example.
yeah,
And it's the same as me. I got to put in the same effort every day. So your mom would have to dress up and do it the next day, and
Yep.
you
Yep.
realized all that, and I get it because I can do something that makes me $50 or something that makes me $5,000, but I don't know. I have to put the same
Right.
effort in. And sometimes it's very defeating that effort you put in to get 50 cents. It's hard
Yes.
to keep our mental mindset. So I think people such as us that are in the people relationship business and dealing with people, we really have to
Yeah.
stay plugged into personal development, right? Would you
Oh,
agree?
100%. I mean, the number one responsibility that we have is to ensure that our energy management is at the level that we need it to be. Our personal energy management, our physical energy, our mental energy, our emotional energy, our spiritual energy, right? All
All
of
of
those
it.
things need to be in place and constant. It's a constant vigilance posture. I mean, even just this morning I had that same thing where I looked at my day and I'm trying not trying. I am not looking at it and saying how hard it is or how much it is or how busy it is. It's like the language that we're using to tell ourselves the life that we're having. And I don't want to live a life that's hard and busy and tough and long. And I want to live a rich life. I want to live a full life. I want to live a satisfying life. So when I look at my calendar, even just playing the mental game of how are you going to describe this day right now? Is it overwhelming? Oh my gosh, it's so much. Or am I going to look at it and take a breath and go, oh, well, at least A, I have another day. And B, what do I want to do in this moment of connection with this person?
Mhm.
That we're having a real conversation, our real conversation will be heard by X amount of people, and hopefully that will inspire them and realize that every moment has meaning if we can be present in it and be deliberate about how we want to live our lives. And
Yeah,
it's a
and
journey. Some
yeah.
days are better than others, and they're all interconnected. So if my physical energy is compromised because my back hurts or it's raining and I can feel the humidity or the moisture in my bones, right? All the things that might happen, or a stomach ache or a cold coming on or whatever might be happening. I notice that it's that much more important for me to focus on the other elements of my management of my energy, my mental, my emotional, my spiritual, my financial, my relational, my recreational, all those other parts of me. I need to make sure that I'm really dialed into, especially if another one is compromised.
Well, yeah, intentionality is so important. You mentioned like having a cold. Well, what do you hear when people, even myself, I was unfortunately had my oldest grandson and my great granddaughter here over Christmas. I could feel myself coming down with something, and it does. It changes our emotional state, our
Oh,
mental
yes.
state, our physical state. Obviously, is starting to change because we're not feeling good. But how do I look at it? What is my intentionality of looking at it? Oh, you know what? I'm grateful because I have things I can take that will help alleviate some of the symptoms. I I thought to myself, "Oh, I'm blessed. I don't have to work right now. I've taken the time off because I have relatives here." And oh, I'm blessed because I have more people in the house that can help out than normal, right? So
Yeah, right.
but it takes effort. People listening and
It really
watching, it
does.
takes effort to think about stuff. Am I perfect? Absolutely not. Sometimes I climb into the rabbit hole and I have to, do the things that I've taught myself and remind myself, well, okay, you're in the rabbit hole now. How are you going to get out?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you're not wallowing in there forever. I give myself a time
This
limit
reminds
too,
me
right?
this reminds me of something that I read so I reread what we talked about prior to the interview starting, the Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. I reread it again. It's really a foundational piece of content that I use for my masterminds that I do, the content crystallization masterminds that I do. And I listened to it, and something struck me that I hadn't heard, or at least I hadn't really integrated before. And it was in one of the agreements, always do your best. No one will ever argue that I do my best. I am sadly the poster girl for the hustle culture in my industry. And I have a friend that just texted me the other day that said, you work harder than any person that I know. I actually don't want to be that person that everybody thinks is the hardest working person. I want to find better balance in my life so that I can not go all the time, all the time, all the time. And so as I was listening to Don Miguel Ruiz's book, I used to just sort of skip over it, basically. I mean, tune out kind of, because always do your best. Of course, I always do my best. Of course, there's no question about it. That's part of what my mother taught me, right? Was just if it is to be, it is up to me. Go, go, go. Do this, do this, do this. Work when you don't want to. And so always do your best always kind of struck me as, yeah, well, of course, doesn't everybody do that? But here's the nuance that I discovered, which is always do your best, no more, no less. So when you think about, okay, I can give 100% of my energy right now, and I'm at 100%. But tomorrow or the next day or the next day, I may be at 40% ability because of life happening, right? Whatever might be, I might not feel well. I might be recovering from a big business trip. If I'm at 40%, then I need to give 100% of 40%, not 100% of 100%. Because what happens when I give 100% at 100%, but I'm really at 40, I go into deficit of 60% of energy. And there's only so much of that I can do before it will come back to me and haunt me because it will have a detrimental impact on me. So I'm really trying to dial into what's my best right now, given where I'm at. And those are different every day. They're different. And I'm learning that lesson that always doing my best looks different for me depending on how I feel.
Well, yeah, I don't think I've ever had a day that's the same. And to me, if when I used to, like back in, 20, 30 years ago, where I'd have that same hamster wheel day, it was the same thing, go to work, go home, get paid. You become very mentally stunted and emotionally stunted. It's like you climbed into your grave and you're just going back and forth. You haven't finished it until you pass away. You've created that rut. And it's certainly
Yeah.
something having gratefulness certainly helps, like reflecting at night when I go to bed, reflecting when I get up in the morning, trying
Yep.
to make it so that I'm not in that funk. But I like that. You talked about being 100% of that 40%. Even if I'm in a funk, when I am having to do stuff in that emotional state that I'm in, or that mental state, which are tied together,
Of
I need to
course.
give 100%. I need to give 100%
Yeah.
of that person I'm having a call with, whether it's a podcast or I'm dealing with a client with my finance business or I'm doing life coaching, whatever the case may be. Suck it up. It does have that phrase does work. You do have to suck it up because somebody else is counting on you and you don't have the right to bring them down into your rabbit hole. Right.
Right,
So,
right. But meet them with integrity and
yes,
humility and
yes.
honesty and say, this is where I'm at, and I'm going to give you my best where I'm at right now.
Yeah, exactly. I like how you talk too about being the hardest working person in the room. I hear this quite often too. People will walk into a room, and I used to have this when I used to do a lot of speaking engagements or workshops in regards to, life planning, financial planning. I don't want to be the smartest person in the room. And people will go, "Why don't you want to be the smartest person in the room?" I'm in the wrong room. I'm not growing anymore. If I'm
Right.
always sometimes you're going to be the smartest person in the room. If you're getting, you're
Yep.
going and getting an opportunity to speak and educate, you might be the smartest person in the room, but you shouldn't be the only smart person in the room. Normally there's other smart
No.
people, and you better be gravitating toward them and asking them their thought process, or, you know, tell me something about yourself. What's your origin? Right. That's why
Right.
origin's so important to me. I like understanding that we're all the same. Even though I know we are, it's always a good reminder to have people say that, this is what I've gone through, and it and don't be that person that's the hardest working person in the room or the
Yeah.
smartest person in the room. Just be a person that's kind, compassionate, you're humble, and be a good listener. Well, I'll end that on
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Well, that's really what I do professionally. So for me, I started this business 15 years ago as a professional speaker because of the stuffed animals and the brushes, and doing the shows. I love being on stage. It's my natural habitat. And I had done hundreds of presentations, hundreds of keynotes, and workshops and contract training and MC work and everything you could possibly imagine. If there's a microphone in hand and a stage, I'm there. Now, what I realized is I find equal amount, if not more, satisfaction from helping other people get crystal clear on what makes them brilliant, because that's really their single biggest pain point is lack of clarity. They don't know who they are. They can't see their brilliance, and no one can. We are built that way. We're built not to fully see ourselves, because that's why it looks so weird when we look in the mirror and we see certain distortions and certain things, and oh, this is ugly, or this isn't right, or this is this, or this is that, when other people see us completely differently. We hear our voices and we don't sound like that, right? We go, do we
Yeah.
really sound like that? So we don't see ourselves clearly ever, and certainly business people don't when it comes to thought leadership and what they, how they shine. And what I realized as I started doing this work 5 or 6 years ago is I'm a professional co-creator, meaning I meet people where they are and I listen deeply. I listen deeply for what they want. I listen deeply for what makes them light up. I listen deeply to what strategic value they have to the marketplace. All of those things are important to really be able to tune into them. And it's not just listening with our ears. I call it a full body immersive experience, is listening. It's listening with my eyes. It's listening with my ears. It's listening with my heart. It's listening with my body. It's listening with my smile and their smile. And all of those things happen where we get to the truth. We get to what's real. We get to what is meaningful. And am sad to see the culture and just the speed of what's happening in the world uh, have the impact that it's having on people's ability to truly be present and to be in witness of someone. They're too busy doing. They're all too busy doing,
Well, they
right?
don't
And
they
not
don't listen. They don't listen to one another. I like how you put that though, and I smiled when you said that because it's true. You need to look at somebody and watch their body language. And it doesn't matter if
yeah,
it's you and I on this Zoom call. It doesn't matter if it's face to face. Watch people leaning
yeah,
forward, watch their shoulders, watch their how is their stance, because it speaks volumes. And then ask
yeah,
good questions, because it might not be what you're presenting or what you're
yeah,
communicating. It might be something they're going through, and it's important for you to realize that, because then you pivot and say, you know what, I can see something's going on. Do you want to talk about it? We can revisit what we were going to work on later, because just to get it done for the sake of getting it done isn't always the right call, right? It's sometimes
no,
it's
right,
and most people don't understand that. But what I will say, it is, you're right. It isn't something that comes naturally. We have to work on this. We have to
yes,
have, and we'll pivot that into the mastermind and the being a thought leader conversation, which I'm excited to talk to you more about. I know some of the biggest hurdles I've gone through in life, like you said, we don't know this stuff. We're not wired to be this way, is when I started becoming involved in masterminds. And, I was in some large masterminds. Some of them were actual physical masterminds where you're in a room,
hmm,
and then some of them, and then it's gravitated towards Zoom. And I know myself, I find that the best masterminds I belong to are the ones where it's like 6, 8 people, really small.
yeah,
But I found it really intriguing reading about you that the mastermind can be two. And when I
yeah,
read that, I knew what you meant, but I wanted you to explain. First and
yeah,
foremost, there'll be people listening to this that are new, or even they're not new listeners, that don't really understand what a mastermind is. So could you please
yeah,
start from the top, explain what a mastermind is,
absolutely.
and then down to where you're where you find it effective, even a two-person mastermind, if you could, please.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So again, I mentioned Think and Grow Rich from Napoleon Hill. In chapter 10 of Think and Grow Rich, it's called The Power of the Master Mind. Two words, master mind. And the study of the power of the master mind is about, in its essence, two or more people coming together in the spirit of unity for a single purpose. That is what a master mind is. And when you look at that with its elegance and simplicity and clarity, you realize that very rarely are we in a mastermind. Most times we are in transactional relationship where we get together and you're showing up because you have needs and I'm showing up because I have needs, and I'm really thinking about my needs as I'm helping you kind of do your needs, but I'm still wanting my needs met. And there's agendas, and there's different dynamics that happen that bring the attention to something different than what it really needs to be, and we get distracted, and there's all sorts of things that happen in business, and I'm going to specifically look at business right now. And how many times have I personally, I've hired very expensive providers of services that have promised me the moon to help me, you know, spread the word, grow my impact, build my business. And it ended up invariably being a time suck and a money suck and an energy suck because I wasn't really being seen. I wasn't being seen. I was being sold. And what I talk about when I do my masterminds of two is that I work with individuals, whether these are executives that are currently in a role that are readying for transition. In other words, they don't really have their own personal brand at all, but they want to have one eventually to be able to do something independently. Whether it's a thought leader at any stage of their business, from emerging, boy, wouldn't be great if I shared my message to $1 million plus a year speakers who need to reinvent themselves, or entrepreneurs that have a brilliant idea and they don't know how to bring it to the marketplace and be distinctive. Whatever it is, when I have a mastermind of two, what I am conveying to my co-creator, my client co-creator, is you're not hiring me to create a fancy marketing you know, uh, presentation, and I'm not going to dazzle you with the brand that I've created, and I'm not going to look at the 50-page meet the brand survey that I'm going to ask you to fill out. I'm not doing transactional work. I'm doing masterminds. And what that is when two or more people come together in the spirit of unity for a single purpose. So when I get together with my co-creators slash clients, I let them know straight up, we're equals in this. We are co-creating together. You aren't hiring me as your marketing guru. And I'm not dispensing my wisdom as a coach and you'll either take it or you won't. We are co-creating together. We're two or more people coming together in the spirit of unity for a single purpose. And their single purpose is our single purpose is their greatest success. So when I come into my masterminds, my 2-day brand crystallization masterminds, my half-day brand clarity reviews, all the different ways that I show up for people, with people, is I let them know we're doing this together. We're doing this together, and everything is going to be about you. I'm not thinking about what am I going to sell them later. I'm not thinking about, oh, I got to make sure I hold back some of my brilliance so they can pay me more. I'm not doing that. I give them everything. I give them just as much as I would give to myself. And that's the magic. The magic is showing up from a full heart, from an open mind, right? From a strong core, strong ground, and saying, I am here to work with you for your greatest good. And I think that's a very rare commodity these days.
No, absolutely. In my industry, it's terrible. It's all transactional based because you talked about that, right? People want to be actually heard. And in order to do
Yeah.
that, you need to start with a relationship. Like some of my appointments I have with people, and I'll just start talking to them about them. And I want to find out more about them. And we'll talk about, and then I'll connect to them in the sense of I've been through that, or I understand, I can empathize with what you're saying. And again, it's how I present it, my tonality and my body language.
Yep.
They're already indecisive about their life or their circumstances. They've already felt like they're not being heard by society in general. They may not even realize it intentionally, but they're just feeling that angst that they don't
Yeah.
understand where it's coming from. And to have somebody actually listen to them. Is it for everybody? No, it's not. It's not for everybody. Some people will just say to me, I just want the transaction. I don't
Right.
I don't want any of this." I've gotten to my point to a point after 21 years of doing this that I don't want that type of client. It doesn't mean that they don't need
Exactly.
help, but I feel empty. I feel shallow.
Right.
And it has to be about, like you said, that synergy. Like it has to be
Yeah.
that mastermind of two has to involve both
Yes.
people. Otherwise,
Yes. Equally.
exactly.
Equally.
And
Not
I spend
yeah.
12 to 15 hours before I talk about final products if there's a product or service that'll help them out. Otherwise, all of it's education, learning, getting to know them getting to know me, building that know,
Right.
like, and trust. And it's a lot because all of a sudden it could be that lipstick sale, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Just using that
You
as an
never know.
example. But
You never know.
I just look at
You
it
just
as a
show up though each time, right?
absolutely, and I know my numbers, and a lot of those people maybe initially they can't even afford the most basic because their life is
Yeah.
just in a turmoil. They need a lot of help
Yeah.
financially, budgeting, and just goal setting. They've never had that kind of direction. And I always tell myself, you know what, even if they never ever do utilize something with me that where I can actually make money, have I left them better in this world? Are they gonna move
Right.
forward in this world? Are they gonna maybe they'll talk to somebody else and send them to me, and that's happened many, many times, right?
Yep.
So,
Yep.
just have a giving heart. Be grateful for
Yeah.
what I have that I can share and help them. Obviously, I wanna survive and thrive and move forward in life. Relationship building is something that is so not utilized enough in all
Right.
aspects of
Actually,
business.
I just started something this year too that I'm super excited about, Dwight, which is again, I specialize in masterminds of two, but then after having dozens of clients, what I realized is there's all these brilliant people now that they have cocktail napkin clarity, now that they know who they are,
Yeah.
they know what they're doing, they know how they serve, they know how they're different. These brilliant people now have this unlocked key to their success. And so I was very drawn to I want them all to know each other. So now I'm holding my own crystal circle hour every month where I bring all of my community together in a spirit of a mastermind. And it is let's get together and the intention is I'm going to first of all just blast them with a bunch of mojo right at the very beginning and just tell them that I love them and that I'm here for them and that I see good things for them and that they are amazing, right? Just to elevate their energy immediately. And then it's like, okay, let's talk about what can I give you? What have I seen in the last month that I know will help all of you? And let's do some hot seat coaching and let's give some asks, and offer some gives and do these things in a group capacity. So taking that mastermind of two energy and bringing it into the mastermind of us has been a really rewarding and by the way, not just rewarding emotionally. It was immediately emotionally rewarding getting all of these people together. But then very soon after that, it was financially rewarding because those in the circle were saying, "Oh, I want to do this thing that she just lit up in someone else. I want to look at that and see how I can maybe work with Teresa." So the money comes when you can stay in that mastermind mentality.
No, absolutely. That's great that you're doing that. I've masterminds themselves can really make it so that it can elevate people as you're talking about. The biggest thing is it also separates people too. I've found that all of a sudden people would be on a mastermind, all of a sudden don't come on because they're not at the right emotional or mental
Mm,
state to be in that environment to hear,
yeah,
or they'll hear, like you mentioned, somebody else is really excited about something that they've experienced, and one person might be, "Oh, I'm going to try that out." Another person
yeah,
might be jealous, or they might be
yeah,
envious. It really I see it because some of the calls will be, and all of a sudden people aren't on for a few weeks, and then they'll come on and they'll share that what happened. This triggered it in them, and
yeah,
they climbed into a rabbit hole, and But
Yep.
I think masterminds are a great place for people to start. And I now I love the fact that you talked about the mastermind attitude. It's going to make me think differently when I have the calls that I have with people, and it's just them and myself, right?
Yeah.
It is a mastermind. It is something that I don't take for granted, but I need to think differently about it, right? To
Right.
it can then heighten my energy level even more to ensure that I'm giving them the result they deserve, right?
Yeah, and
Obviously,
it
they have to
changes
put
also
effort
the
in.
way you see yourself too, because then if you know you're holding masterminds of two and you're really giving all of yourself and all of your resources, all of your wisdom and your insight and your creativity and your energy and your power and your vision and your hope, and you just are really showing up 100% for that person, for that single purpose, then you know how much value that has. You do know how much value that has when you show up like that. So that when you're having, quote, sales conversations about what your offer is, when you can lean into the power of the mastermind instead of thinking about, gee, I hope they choose my services or I hope they choose my products, you stay in that sales role when you're in that transactional mentality. When you move into elevate into a mastermind mentality, then you're really peers and strategic potential strategic partners. And that's what makes sales so much easier. So if we can get back to the business part of the impact of this is when you know yourself with such clarity that you can draw it on a cocktail napkin and you operate from a mindset of masterminds versus I'm selling you something, then people, A, your confidence soars because you know who you are, and B, you're staying in your power seat, and your power seat is your heart. Your power seat is your heart. It's not your brain. It's not your hands and feet working really, really hard and writing that one more email and doing that one more phone call. It's not. Your power seat is your heart. And so when you can, that's where the mastermind lives. Is in that space of genuine generosity and openness and willingness to connect deeply to another.
Oh, absolutely. I look at the fact that you talked about the napkin presentation. I had written comments about that too. You don't hear a lot of people talking about napkin presentations unless you're in a lot of MLMs and network marketing companies use napkin presentations. And I remember learning my first napkin presentation and took that into being able to literally be on a plane and grabbing the little
Yes.
napkin, and I've unfolded it and
Yes.
showed people what I can do, right? And in a
Yes.
very
Exactly.
concise presentation. But many people
Yep.
listening or watching don't understand that. So can you go more into about the what the napkin
Sure.
presentation can do for
Absolutely.
somebody to highlight their expertise?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, I'd like to offer them to go see my latest TEDx talk. So I did a program at TEDx Temecula called Doodle Your Dream, How a Cocktail Napkin Will Save the World. And that really is my idea worth sharing, my idea worth spreading, which is when we can draw our brilliance on a cocktail napkin, we can sell it anywhere, anytime to anyone. It is a transformative tool. The cocktail napkin is the single most important technology that we can utilize. I truly believe this. When we get so clear we can draw it and a child can understand it. I'm not talking about making bullet point lists and I'm not talking about creating acronyms. I'm literally talking about creating a picture of what we want to convey. That is the level of clarity that I provide people and that I think is an essential aspect in this very distracted, overwhelmed, noisy world that we live in. We need to cut through the noise of words, endless, endless, endless words, and pictures are the only thing that do that. Pictures are what takes our brain. Um, our brain processes pictures faster. It enacts emotions more than words do. There's so many reasons why we want to get cocktail napkin clarity on what we do. And what I find in that is two things. Number one, it's very difficult for us to see it ourselves. Okay, just as we will never see ourselves fully in life, we'll never hear what we really sound like, we'll never see our full essence. We can't really see ourselves when we're so close to it. So, the first part of getting cocktail napkin clarity is who's the person that can see me that I don't? that I can't see myself. And that person needs to be not just loving and supporting, but they need to be honest. They need to be direct. They need to be strategic. They need to understand your market. You need to understand the industry. So who is that person that can see you is the first question to get cocktail napkin clarity. The second thing is, how do I cut away everything that doesn't really matter? So, for example, when I'm working with a thought leader or an executive who wants to create, her own brand and build a foundation of thought leadership on that, what I will do is I will ask them to create a box of brilliance for me. And what I do is I say, wherever you have shined, Dwight, wherever you have shined, maybe this is a workshop that you did that you recorded on Zoom. Maybe it's a 10-minute podcast interview. Maybe it's a manuscript that you've written that you've never even published yet. Where have you shined in the world? And put that in the box of brilliance. And so what happens is people put in anywhere from 5 to 95 pieces of content in this box of brilliance where they have looked at themselves and said, I'm proud of this. I like this. I want to do more of this. Whether it's, I mean, it can still also equally be ugly and word salad and thought spaghetti and half baked, and it should never be shown to anybody anywhere. Okay. And that's what I offer them is this safe space to say, give me it all. I don't care if you were 50 pounds heavier. I don't care if this was 20 years ago. I don't care if you're still talking about old technology that doesn't matter. If it's something that still lights you up, then it belongs. Then it belongs in your box of brilliance. And so I liken it to, Michelangelo's got a huge, slab of marble, Italian marble, and he chipped away everything that wasn't David. He chipped away everything that wasn't David. So when I'm looking at a box of brilliance from one of my co-creators, one of my clients, I here's the magic. I actually read it and I actually watch it and I actually listen to it. I'm not scanning it. I'm not reviewing it. I'm not spot listening to it from here to here to here and jumping through it. I'm actually meeting people where they are in their content. Okay. And seeing it the way it was designed to be seen. Most people don't read your books. Most people don't listen to full podcasts. Most people don't even pay attention to speakers on stage for all 60 minutes. They're busy talking to somebody else or getting on their phone or doodling on the notepad or checking out or thinking about their to-do list. They're doing different things. So when I'm crystallizing someone, I'm in their box of brilliance, I am seeing them for the first time, really. And what will happen is when you're in a full level of presence with someone vis-a-vis their content, right? Uh, when I'm fully present with someone's energy through their content, what will happen is I will notice where they light up. I will feel literally in my body. I will feel when somebody is excited about something and when they're just saying it just to say it. And I will distill down to a few words. What are they really talking about? And when I get to those themes that I've distilled down, then I get creative and get the dry erase board out and I design a one of a kind model around it that then goes on the cocktail napkin. So it starts with a holistic view of where do I shine? Where am I brilliant? Where have I been lit up? And really examining those things for the essence of what they are so that you can then draw that thing in a really intuitive, poetic, memorable, actionable, marketable way. So
Yeah.
it's a journey that we take from this beautiful place of brilliance to where everybody shines so brightly in so many different ways and they can do so many things and they have so many programs and so many gifts and so many strategies, blah, 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 blah. We're no loss of words. The real challenge is how do you wade through all those words to get to something that you can draw in 3 to 7 words in a picture? And the way that you do that is to really be with and observe and honor and love and notice all of those things so that you can really only take down the things that matter the most.
Oh, yeah. It's important that we actually let that person know in a very concise period of time because it's like a mosquito. It's gone. It's just bzz,
Oh, yes.
right. You
Yes.
lose their attention
Yes.
span because there's, as you mentioned, so many people in a room listening to a talk. They're zoned out. People don't
Yep.
listen to whole podcasts. They don't read whole books. And
No.
you know, when I used to think to myself, well, I've sold so many books, but yet I hardly got any reviews. Well, it's hard
Mhm.
enough to get them to finish the book, let alone to go on and put a review put a review
Finish the
about.
book, try starting the
Yeah,
book. Half of I mean, I've got
they
books I
collect
haven't even
they
started.
collect dust on our shelves. Yes, I get it.
Yeah.
That's why I
Yeah.
focused more on Audible. I find I'm more likely, not 100%, but I'm more likely to get to an Audible book than I am to pick up a physical book. But
Yeah.
yeah, you bring up so many good points. You talk about your crystallization method, the process you developed, and how it ties into sales and thought leadership. Can you talk a little bit more about that, please?
Sure. So when I crystallize somebody, just like I described, where they have a box of brilliance, they put in all this content, and I essentially am like a CSI investigator for someone's brilliance. I find it through their content. I will notice it, and I will pull it into a framework, a unique framework that maps to their personality, framework that then can really be the bones of everything. Because as a thought leader, as a speaker, author, coach, consultant, advisor, trainer, influencer, anyone who's taking their brilliance and putting it out in the world and saying, I can make it a better place because of it, and your business itself, when you're doing that, one of the biggest challenges that you have to success is you never know what you should be working on next, or that sales are difficult because you don't seem to be converting in the conversation, or you don't know what your marketing strategy should be. And what happens is, in my with my energy eyes, this is how I see the world, is that people chase after, first of all, they're chasing after the money first. Monetize, 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 monetize. When they can't monetize to the degree that they want to, they push against the grain of organic growth and they try to amplify. They try to pay someone to help them grow. Right. And the reality is, it's because they actually don't know how to clarify their brilliance. They can't draw it. They can't see it in its simplest, most elegant form. And so my crystallization process that I do helps them not only get that perfect picture, but they also get the perfect words. So they're sending out the same words all the time. For example, my picture of my brilliance, even though we're on a podcast, if you can imagine that each one of us, we each have a spirit print inside of us, in our hearts. The reason why we're here, the reason why we want to send this out into the world. What is our brilliance that's different than everybody else? Like a fingerprint, except it's our purpose, right? That's in our hearts. And so if you imagine that each person has this heart and it's got that cocktail napkin right there on it, when that resonates then outside of ourselves into the world, we're amplifying it, we're bringing it out into the world. That amplification, there's only four ways people take us in. They read us, so they could be reading our blogs, they could be reading our emails, they could be reading our books, right? They could be reading our podcast transcriptions. They're reading us. They're listening to us, like they're listening to us right now on a podcast interview. Maybe they're listening to us in an audio book. They're watching us. So they're watching videos that we've done, clips on TikTok, Facebook Lives, and then they're interacting with us. They're interacting with us when we're on stage. They're interacting with us when we are at a networking event. They're interacting with us when we are just randomly in an airport bar. Okay. So all these places, what happens in business, in my view, the reason why that's so hard for so many people is because all those amplification ways that we're sending out into the world, they're all saying different things. Our website says something different than our LinkedIn, which says something different than what we say in podcast interviews, which says something different than how we would describe ourselves in a networking event. It's all different. Everything is different. And when we have a disparate way of communicating our brilliance because we don't really know it, when we're doing a little bit of this, a little bit of this, and a little bit of this, and a little bit of this, all these different ways, what's happening is we're diffusing our energy out in the marketplace where people don't really know what we do. They don't know what makes us different. But when we are dialed in, like mine, clarify, amplify, monetize, and then it monetizes after you've been amplifying it strategically across all the ways people take us in, we don't have to sell anymore. We're actually magnetizing people to us. So clarify, amplify, monetize from the inside out. Right? When you know yourself to that degree, then everywhere you show up, for example, for me, reading, people who read the transcript of this podcast will know that I'm all about cocktail napkin clarity. Clarify, amplify, monetize. They will understand that. And when I write my articles, they see that that's what that I'm about that as well. When they read my posts on social media, that's what I'm posting about. When I speak on podcasts, this is what I talk about. When I get on keynote stages and I'm talking about personal brands and and networking and sales and marketing and all the things, I'm saying the same stuff over and over and over again, so that no matter who is seeing me, where they're seeing me, how they're seeing me, they're getting the same information. And that makes business so much easier. Now, I want to bring it one, so that's marketing, right? That's the marketing part that makes it easy, because you're just going to be doing the same stuff over and over and over and over again. Now, where it becomes the sales, right? How do we actually get the do re mi? How do we get the money? How do we get the money off the cocktail napkin is when you know yourself so well that you can draw it. When a child could understand what you do, or a VP of sales, or an HR director, right? All of those people, when you get so clear on that, what you can do as a salesperson or as someone who needs sales as part of your business, what you can do is simply relax, and you can be present with the person that's across the table from you or across the Zoom from you. And you can truly 100% be full body listening to them. And most times we're so nervous about what we're going to say and sell that we're not really full bodied listening to anybody, because we're worried that they're going to ask us something that we can't answer or bring up an obstacle that we can't overcome. And we're in our own mind half the time when we're quote selling, right? So when we're in cocktail napkin show and tell, I can be super relaxed and just go, tell me about you. I want to know about you. I want to know what's going on, what matters, right? What matters? Where do you want to go? That's my favorite question. Where do you want to go? What does it actually look like? Right? And asking those right questions to really get a full sense of who they are. And when you do that, A, you're getting incredible amount of intel to be able to utilize to craft your responses to them. But B, what you're doing is you're really opening them up. You're opening their hearts up. And when they can really be seen like that and heard and understood, then when you bring in your cocktail napkin to talk to them about it and say, well, this is what I do. I deliver cocktail napkin clarity for brands and businesses so they can clarify, amplify, and monetize in that order. That's what I do. And when I'm talking about my cocktail napkin to a potential client, co-creator, I'm leaning into the power of the cocktail napkin, not, gee, I hope they like me. I'm just describing what I know to be true. And I tell people on sales calls all the time, Dwight, I say, when they invariably turn to me and say, tell me about you, after they've told me everything about them, I say, I deliver cocktail napkin clarity, and I freaking love it. It's my favorite thing to do in the whole wide world. I totally love seeing other people, and I love drawing their brilliance. And I start talking about what I believe in, which is I believe that the way that we solve problems in our businesses is we need to clarify it first before we amplify, and then we monetize. And it's a hill I'm willing to die on. And when you talk to that level of competence and confidence, people feel it and they see it and they want to have a part of it, right? As opposed to selling, going, well, I offer a variety of marketing services that will help you increase your reach. And, who cares,
Now,
right? Nobody cares.
the energy of the way you stated that, though, is going to affect it, of course, right?
Exactly. It's all about the
we're,
energy.
well,
It's
we're
always all about the energy.
we're creatures of needing energy. Our brains are a giant computer. We don't put the right things in. We don't ask the right questions. We don't get asked the right questions, and we just get stuck on that hamster wheel. So, people that are listening or watching, what Teresa's talking about, is so important. Some of what you talked about is the inconsistencies of what we represent as a personal brand. Sometimes it's a
Yeah.
business brand. It's discombobulated all over the place, right?
Yeah.
They can
Yep.
look at, like, you look at my brand, Give a Heck. My book talks about, it focuses on origin, it focuses on specific things. My podcast is the same way, and my business is
Yep.
the same way,
Exactly.
but it takes effort. It doesn't happen
Yeah.
easily. I had lots of great people helping me, and those listening or watching, Teresa's somebody that could definitely help you. Reach out to her and find out how she can help you, because to sit and feel helpless is a choice. To have
Right.
success and take that first baby step is a choice. Initially, it might be a little bit of a angst and some pain, right? But it's good pain. Pain is letting you know you're alive and that you want more out of life, right? It doesn't have to mean that, you have to stay stuck, right? There's great people
Right.
like Teresa out there. So, Teresa, if you had to give our listeners one last closing message, what would you tell them in regards to giving a heck and never giving up?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I would say that first of all, thank you. I loved it, and I would love to have people check me out at teresarose.com /clear if they want to know about my crystallization process, and it's spelled like there's a rose.com in case you're wondering. And what I would offer up your audience is use cocktail napkin clarity. The next time that you are presenting something important, see what you can do to draw a picture of it and let that magic take hold.
Yeah, that's a great closing message, and I'll make sure that those new to the show go to giveaheck.com, and you'll see the show notes, and you'll be able to find the links of how to reach out to Teresa as well as her social media. And yeah, don't sit and wait. Do something today. Make a difference in your life. It only takes, you know, the time you've spent to listen to this. You deserve that in two times, three times to start on the road of, discovery for yourself, and where you can live an intentional life. So, is there any last minute things you'd like to add before we wrap up the show?
No, thank you for the opportunity. And I look forward to your listeners drawing their brilliance. Go doodle that dream and check out that TEDx talk so you can get inspired to do so.
Absolutely. I plan on checking it out myself. So thanks so much for being on Give a Heck, Teresa. I appreciate your time and sharing some of your experiences so that others too can learn it is never too late to give a heck.
Thank you for taking time out of your day and listening to Give a Heck. If you find value, I'd appreciate you sharing with your friends and family so they too can learn how to live life on purpose, not by accident. So you do not miss the next episode, please subscribe on your favorite podcast platform, and please also post a review. I look forward to reading your comments. This has been Dwight Heck. If you want to check out other podcast episodes or today's show notes, please check out my website, giveaheck.com. And until next time, together let us all strive to give a heck.